Hey, well, hi, I'm Dr. Jen, and I'm here with Erin Parks, co-founder of Equip, and this is Eat Your Damn Food. And Erin, this has been in the making for some months now, and I'm so glad that you were able to join me today and just to be a part of this show. So thank you so much. I know you have a lot going on, and professionally, personally, and you made the time to be here to have this conversation, conversations that matter.
Well, of course, Dr. Jen, I've been so excited since I met you in June. I'm like, we must continue the conversation. Felt like we could talk for hours. So thank you for
Yeah,
having me.
you're welcome. You're welcome. Well, I think a question where I'd like to start is I remember when I first heard about Equip, I was like, wow, like Equip and Fab were doing some things very similar to the ways that we were thinking in terms of philosophy and maybe different ways of working with clients and seeing that, it's not one size fits all with treatment with eating disorders and sometimes the other mental health issues that go along with that. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about the Equip story and like what called you to design this and putting your heart, your soul, your spirit, everything into creating such an incredible program.
Oh, well, first, I think that people think that being a clinician and an entrepreneur don't necessarily fit. And I would have thought that too. And then I realized that almost every clinician I know is an entrepreneur, whether they are working in a university research lab, so they are a PI and they're putting together a project and dreaming up research to do, whether they're running a group practice or a private practice. We're always thinking about what is not working for our clients and how can we figure out the service that they need. And that's really how Equip was born. My co-founder, Christina Saffron, and I noticed that there were a lot of people who did not have financial access to evidence-based treatments in their community. Either there were people in their community, but they were all at wait list, or they didn't take their insurance. But there's also a lot of communities that just don't have any eating disorder providers. And
Mm.
so we founded Equip in late 2019. And Equip gives patients, our youngest patient is 3, our oldest is 82, and thousands in between. And we give every patient a full treatment team. So they get very similar to FAB. They get a therapist, they get a dietitian, they get a psychiatrist. We have medical providers to deal with the medical aspects of eating disorders. And we also provide people with lived experience. We have a peer mentor, that's someone in recovery, and a family mentor that is usually a parent, someone who's already helped a loved one through recovery. And this 5, 6 person treatment team surrounds the patient and their family, fully covered by insurance for an entire year of treatment. So that's
Mm.
Equip in a nutshell.
That's incredible. Sometimes I like to think about eating disorder treatment as like maybe we all have the same goal of like you're climbing this mountain and probably the biggest mountain most people are ever going to confront, or at least one of them in their lifetime. And isn't it beautiful that we have so many different ways now, maybe up the mountain, right? And we're also a year-long program. And for some people, they're like, whoa, like a year, why a year, right? Because sometimes that can sound like a lot, but I'm thinking similar to Fab, like when people come to Equip, many times they have already been dealing with this problem, not just months, but oftentimes probably years before they come in your door. So I'd love to hear like why a year, right?
Yes.
Because that's can be surprising for people.
Yes. And I mean, I will say it sounds daunting to work on anything for a year, right? To commit to something for a full year. And yet, eating is something we do 3 to 6 times a day. So if that has been disordered, if that has been hard for us, it's really going to take some time to undo something you've been doing every day, every week, every year, but also 6 times a day. Additionally, we live in our body 24/7. And a lot of the people that we're working with are creating new relationships with their body. And so, understandably, these things take a while. And then, lastly, we're living in this culture that tells us we should look a certain way, we should behave a certain way, a lot of messages that are really counter to what eating disorder treatment looks like. And so, recovering in this world could be quite hard. And then we also have the ups and downs in life. Life certainly has tons of moments of joy, but life has a lot of let's see, this is live. A lot of bad stuff. I will not use a swear word, but there's good of life and there's really hard things in life. And so understandably, when you go through a hard time, it's easy to fall back upon previous habits. If you've struggled with depression, maybe when you go through a hard time, it's hard to get out of bed. If you've struggled with substance use, maybe you might have urges to use again. But same thing with an eating disorder. When you're going through life, there's going to be all sorts of things that trigger you to go back to your old way of being. And I think a lot of people benefit from treatment for much, much longer than a year, but a year is right now what we can offer that's fully covered by insurance.
Yeah, I love that. And I think when you really are with that person through all those different stages, right? Like you really are seeing them transform in their life and can work on so much after a year. Because I know I got my start working at a really great treatment center, but like, gosh, the clients were in their, short periods of time, like whatever the insurance was willing to cover for most of it. Sometimes if people came from Canada, those were the clients who stayed longer because the insurance covered them. But we didn't get to see them through all these other stages. So I know something I love in FAB is to see this human, oh my goodness, like totally transform their lives. And I think that can be such an exciting part. And then life continues to happen, right? And some of it joyful and some of it really not joyful. So, can we use all those new ways of coping, ways of eating, ways of living through this recovery process?
Exactly. Yes,
Yeah.
so, so true and so well said. And I think
Mm.
that's one of the reasons why I know people love working at FAB and love working at Equip is it's really nice to know how the story, like what's the next chapter? What happens next? Instead of just seeing a small snippet.
Yeah. So one other question I want to ask you, Erin, and we had a chance just to briefly touch base about this, but I know for us as well that the family component is such a critical, and I say family because maybe it's biological family, maybe it is, like you were saying, chosen family. For some people, it's like bringing in their support of their friends or extended family or siblings, whoever it might be, but how important that is to have that community, because even though a year sounds long with your treatment team, like at some point they're not going to be with us, and helping the family do that work and transform has been so critical for, I know, the clients that we work with. But I'd love for you to share a little bit more about the philosophy at Equip with families, loved ones, and how that works and what you've seen.
Yes, there's something really interesting, awful about our culture, about how we think about when should we ask for support from our village and when should we do something alone. And I think we probably all can think of someone we know that was struggling with cancer or struggling with a medical illness, and the community rallies around them. I know someone in our community who like made T-shirts for everybody and started meal trains and figured out how to both visually support them so they felt supported, but also practically support them with things like meals. We see the same thing when someone goes through divorce. I guess there's a thing in Vegas now. It's not just bachelorette parties, there's divorce parties, right? There's ways in which, I
That's a
know,
new one.
a
I
new
have
one.
not heard that one.
But it is culturally okay for your friends, your family to rally around you when you go through something difficult like a divorce. But when you're going through a mental illness, in our culture at least, you're supposed to do it by yourself. You have depression, you go by yourself to individual therapy, and you just white knuckle it by yourself through that depression, through that anxiety, through substance use, through mental illness. I think the substance use community with AA and NA have done a better job of creating community in a village. But what is still a little bit different is not bringing in the healthy people in your life to help structure your life for pro-health behaviors. And so that's a big part about bringing family, whether, as you said, biological or chosen family, into eating disorder treatment. It's not to be paternalistic and say, like, you need to have a family member to help you get well. It's that life is hard, and sometimes you're going to be triggered, depressed, anxious, exhausted, and want to skip eating dinner. And it's really wonderful if your roommate knows that you're going through eating disorder treatment and says, hey, Erin, we're not going to skip dinner tonight because remember I made a commitment to you that I'd always remind you to eat. So let's go out. Let's go, grab some Chipotle. And that's what it means to bring family in, including chosen family, is people who are going to help you act your values, do your pro recovery behaviors, even when you feel like not doing it.
Yeah, like we all benefit from accountability. I mean, we just
Hmm.
do, and support, right? It just makes everything much better. And I know for us, our loved ones who are really involved in that person's care, uh, those are our clients who tend to really do the best, right? It's like, it's I mean, it's so evident when the families are showing up, when they're contacting us, when they're asking for their own support, or how should I respond? You know, my loved one's having a really hard time and they're reaching out to us for that guidance. Those are the clients who end up doing the best. And I want to ask you one more question. We've been noticing lately, and it's been such a cool thing to see, is I think in sort of the beginning of my career, I was getting so many more calls like from the moms, right, about their loved one. And probably still there's like a lot of moms who are that first point of contact. But lately, what we're noticing is so many more dads getting involved. And I even like fairly recently in our like loved one support group where we don't have the clients in that particular group, we had as many dads as moms. And I was so excited to see that. And I'm wondering if you're noticing some of that as well.
We are, and I like to share this bit of research that I think really helps unlock something for parents. It is not uncommon for lot of parents, at least 50% of parents, to say, I don't want to be involved in my child's treatment. I love them so much that I think what's best for them is that I'm not involved because I think I would make it worse. I think I wouldn't know what to say. And
Mhm.
my kid told me they don't want me to be involved.
Mm,
And so then we talked to, we talked to several dozen teenagers for this study and we asked, why do you want your parents to not be involved? And they're
mm,
like, I don't want them to know how bad it is, and I
mm.
don't want them to worry about me. And
Oh,
so when I tell parents that the real reason they don't want their kid there is because they don't want them to worry about them and see how bad it is, that's when moms and dads and grandparents and aunts and uncles are like, oh, I'm coming to treatment. Like if it's just about me not worrying about them, like good luck getting me to not worry about them. I'm there
yeah,
for them.
yeah.
And I think that particularly for dads who um, through lots of mechanisms in our culture have been put into this role where they're not in charge of the emotions of the relationship. They really think I'll make it worse. They really think that. And so telling them like, oh no, it's not that your kid thinks you're going to make it worse, they just don't want you to worry, they're like, oh, I'm coming in.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad that that message is getting through to parents and to other family members and to chosen family, that you're not here to be paternalistic, you're not here because we're going to teach you what to do and you're going to do everything perfectly. You're here because they need you and they just don't want you to know, they don't want you to worry. And that's not a reason that any of us stay away from our kids.
Mm, so good. So well said. And I know when we did one of our fairly recent family groups, we actually split the moms and the dads for a period of, so like we had everybody together and then we split them. And it was really cool to hear sort of some of the dads' concerns. And I think maybe being with all the other dads, there was like a sort of a side that we don't always hear from the dads. They times in general, not every single dad, but maybe hang back a little bit more. But in that setting, how much they shared, and this idea of like I'm supposed to be able to fix like what's going on with my family or help in that way. Like, here's a problem, I'm going to help solve it. And we know eating disorder treatment is, we wish it was like that, right? Like, here's the problem, and now we can fix it. And it's lots of twists and turns and ups and downs. So that was interesting to hear from the dads of like, whoa, like I have to learn this whole new skill set about how to support and help and maybe not fix it in the way I have been used to trying to fix things that have been wrong, which I thought that was also a really fascinating point.
I love that. I think often in like two parent households, and even when a kid is going between two households, opposites attract.
Mm,
And so you sometimes end up with one parent who has a lot of strengths in the emotional arena and one parent who has a lot of strengths in the like, get it done
mm,
arena, or someone who's like really into numbers. They're like, oh, they need 3,500 calories a day. I'm going to do that research and I'm going to get it exactly done. but the other parent who has a different skill set. And so one of the nice things when you can bring in multiple adults or multiple healthy people in the family is then no one person has to be everything to the patient, right? So it's like, oh wait, this is an emotional thing, tag you in. Oh wait, this is like we got to get this done. We're going to tag you in.
Mm, that's great. Well, Erin, I know the two of us can talk and talk, and I definitely hope you make a trip back to Miami so we
I do
can
too.
have another breakfast or something
I'd love
together.
that.
So I'd love for you just to share with people if they want to know more about Equip and what's the best way to access treatment. And so if you can let people know how to do that.
Yes. Yes. So you can find us online at equip.health. And then on Instagram, I'm Dr. Erin Parks. And we are available 24/7 to answer any questions you have. And we take almost all commercial insurance and a lot of Medicaid as well. So if you're looking for care that's in network, we might be a fit for you. And if not, we would love to recommend some of the partners we work with around the US would be good fits too.
Wonderful. Okay, Erin, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Dr. Jen.